Yes, we are on week 2 of our DTR series, Define the Relationship. And so if you missed week 1, it is on YouTube. You could go check it out. And there's one lady that has commented. Comments on YouTube are always hilarious. I've been scolded and ridiculed, and I've been praised. And this one lady, all she says is hallelujah. And I don't know if she's really excited about how we define marriage, or about she likes the friend zone a lot, and she's like, sweet, clarity finally. But she's stoked, and if you missed it, I hope you watch it, and you will be too. But I want to real quick in 90 seconds just give a recap from last week. Our goal here, our goal is to have healthy, God-honoring relationships, and we define that from friendship all the way to marriage. And if we're going to get something radically different than what the world has to offer, right? And what we know from the world has to offer, the relationships we've seen, the marriages we've seen seen a lot of heartbreak, we've seen a lot of hurt, even in dating, and vague, ambiguous. I said that 8 times. Said it wrong 8 times last week. This is starting out so great. We want clarity. And all of that, yes. And so if we're going to get that, something radically different than what the world has to offer, then we have to approach it in a radically different manner. And so the first thing we changed is how we approach friendships. And so we defined the friend zone last week. It's you know your friends. He or she, the person of the opposite sex, knows your friends, and everybody knows your friends. There's no whispers are they secretly dating? Do they like each other? None of that, all right? It's just clarity. And so we put clear boundaries up between all of those different relationships because it keeps people safe, and it keeps us from being hurt or wounded in any way. And the last thing we talked about last week was singleness. And we sometimes treat singleness as this plague or disease. And if you could only get married, then it's going to solve all of your problems. And we talked about how, and we just did this real short at the end real quickly, but singleness, there's a time when it's good and necessary and helpful. Just like eventually there will be a time when it's good and necessary and helpful to be married. But if you're single, don't try to do everything you can to escape it as if it's evil. Steward it well, and then pursue the Lord and seek Him to get out of it in a way that's going to honor Him and bring you to another healthy and strong place. So that's what we talked about last week. We defined all those relationships. Tonight, we're going to talk about how to get out of the friend zone, right? And I used this analogy last week. I want to touch on it one last time. I used a sports analogy about if you're going to try out for a team. Now, we don't have a ton of tryouts nowadays. I mean, you do maybe in high school, but after that, not so much. They have combines and things like that. Any jocks out there? You could watch a combine. But there's training camp, or there's training that you go through, and then there's the tryout or the combine, and then you find out after that if you make the team. And I want to use that analogy tonight as we try to get out of the friend zone, as we try to enter into godly relationships. We want to figure out what are the things we need to do when it comes to training. How do we get prepared before we start dating? Then the tryout is going on that first date. I'm going to talk about your first dates right now. Maybe if you remind me, I'll tell you about my first date with my wife. Did some things right, some things wrong. Half of what I'm teaching you is because I learned the hard way or I did something stupid. And then finally, there's if you made the team. And we're going to spend all next week talking about, all right, your official boyfriend, girlfriend. You can't say you're Facebook official because only old people have Facebook now, but that's what we did 2 years ago. That's what we said. So let's get into it. What are the things you need to have together before dating, and to what level? How do you get out of the friend zone? First thing you have to do to get out of the friend zone is become marriage material. I like the way Dan Dealing puts it. Dan Dealing says, be the person you are looking for is looking for. So keep that up there for a little bit. Now, there's a couple disclaimers. Now, in order, if you're like, all right, I want to become marriage material, some of you from the get-go, you're like, well, that's going to take forever. And so Eeyore's out there, calm down. All right, I'm not saying you have to be perfect. In fact, there's a lot of things we approach. I know a lot of married couples who say, hey, I'm going to start having kids once I'm ready. And I laugh at them in their faces because you'll never fully be ready to have kids, right? And it's the same way, you'll never be perfect. But the goal is to be progressing and working towards it as best you can. And the other side of things is you have to note that there are some disqualifiers. If you're training and you're getting ready to try out and you injure yourself, then you need to put the tryout off. You need to wait a while, right? Well, in dating, when we're preparing to become marriage material, when we're working towards dating, if there's some things that come up where we realize, man, I need to really seek the Lord or do some heavy lifting, you might need to say, hey, it's not a season where I'm going to date. I'm going to put that off for a while, and you work on yourself. And that's okay. Nothing's wrong with that. So have those things in mind. So I'm going to ask you 8 questions to see if you're marriage material. And the first question is simply this. I want you to ask yourself these things. How is your relationship with God? Now remember, our goal is to have godly relationships that lead to either godly marriage or like a amicable split up so you guys can go and pursue godly relationships from there. But the main goal, the epitome of what we're aiming for is a godly marriage. Well, that means you need to be a Christian. You need to be seeking God and submitted to His word and His ways. So I've had people come up to me and say, hey, do you know so-and-so? Should I date them? And I say, I think they're awesome, and this way, and this way, and this way, and I don't know if they're a Christian. So no, don't date them. If you're thinking about dating someone and they're not a Christian, don't date them. Don't do it. You're going to have a completely different worldview and values than they do. And maybe not completely different. They might say the right things, but when it comes to walking in conviction, you need the Holy Spirit, and you need to be submitted to Christ for that. So from our standpoint, if we're becoming marriage material, we're becoming the person that the person we're looking for is looking for, then we need to give our lives to Jesus and submit to Him. Now, if you do that just so you could become marriage material, you're going to have to work some things out, right? It doesn't exactly work that way. But you really need to ask yourself, am I walking with the Lord? And the second question is really close to that, and it's this. How regularly do you do devotions? Do you go to church? Do you serve in ministry? And we could keep writing up there. Do you tithe? You're going to ask yourself, like, how are these Christian characteristics and spiritual disciplines, how are they showing up in your life? And the reason that question is important is because it tells you what your priority is. And if your number one priority is not God, then you're going to struggle to love someone the way God calls you to serve them the way God calls you to, and to selflessly be in a relationship the way He calls you to, or to do it with the motives and goals that He wants you to walk in and be in relationship with. So what is your number one priority? The second side of things is if it's not God and your number one priority is something else, you need to know what that is so you can see how that's going to affect your relationship or what needs to change. Some people need to be real honest and say, hey, I'm a Christian, I love God, but my number one priority in life is making money. Or my number one priority in life is sports. And be real with yourself. And then figure out, all right, what do I need to change or work on? Because if money is my number one priority, that's going to introduce some challenges into a relationship. And I'm going to say some like pretty big challenges. You want to work hard. I want you to be prosperous and make money. But that's not your number one priority. Cool? I felt like for a second going full like Sicilian and going capiche and stuff. You guys, anyone know? Capash? Is that? All right, we'll work on you later. All right, see, next question. Becoming marriage material? Question you need to ask yourself is this. Do you have freedom from past hurts? This is interesting. My wife says that you can marry easy or you can marry hard. This is what she means by that. Marriage is a refining process. It's difficult. I don't want to like paint this picture like it's torturous. It's pretty epic and I love it. But it's a refining process. It's gonna, you two, you and your spouse are gonna live together. You're gonna butt heads. You're gonna have to figure things out. And so with that in mind, you can marry easy or you can marry hard. You could face those things, having worked out as much as possible and seeking the Lord, and then you get through those, or you can introduce into a relationship that's going to be refining. You could already bring into it some challenging things. And you don't want to do that. Now, here's the truth. If you're going to get married, you're going to marry your spouse in all of their baggage, all of their past, all of their debt. We'll get there. You're going to marry all of that. My wife, she married into my family, and thank God that she was willing to do that, But with my family came a lot of challenges and difficulties that she had to work through. I want to make sure that I'm free as much as possible from past challenges, hurts, wounds, abuse, so that I know that freedom, I'm walking in it, and I'm no longer carrying with me things that the Lord wants to give me freedom from, and things that are going to hurt or hinder my future relationship. So some of you right here, this is like, okay, star that one, and you got to come back to that. Circle back. Maybe meet with the counselor, meet with the mentor so that you can work through those things. So you're going to ask yourself about your relationship with God, about freedom from past hurts. You're going to ask yourself, are you currently in a battle with sin? Now, the test here, again, it's not perfection that we want, but if there's a habitual, reoccurring sin in your life, then I'm going to tell you, hey, before you enter into a relationship with someone else, get freedom from that. If there's something that's really, you guys know my testimony. I used to struggle with pornography, and that was one thing that I knew, hey, I'm not going to enter into a serious relationship and bring this into that relationship. And so to be fair, one of the big motivations I had to kick it to the curb was I wanted to get married, right? Now, that can't be your only motivation. You're going to bring other trouble into it. But frankly, when you're fighting sin, let God be your motivation and then add on as many other things that are healthy as you can. Almost done with this section. Fifth question. Where are you at in your career and with your finances? So my wife and I, we have been married 10 and a half years. It's pretty dang rad. We have 4 kids. I love it. And we met when I was 20 and she was 19. That is so bizarre to think about. We were almost 21 and 20, right? We started talking right before we turned both of our birthdays. I was a junior in college, and I was at a place where I was broke, really broke. But I knew what I wanted to do for my career. I was working here at Foothills, so I had the path lined out, and I didn't have any debt. And I was willing to work my tail off. And so where I was at in my career was good for my age. It wasn't great, but it was good. I was a YV director. I figured I would do that for a couple years. Some of you guys know I was there for a lot longer than expected, but it worked out. God's good. And so I was in a good place. My wife was a junior in college because she took a bunch of AP classes and got ahead, and she's smarter than me. And even though she's younger. And so she was a junior in college, and she had a little bit of debt. She had $6,000 in debt from college. And so we started dating, and she stopped taking out school loans. And she did everything she can to not take any more loans because she knew, hey, we're serious. We're going to want to get married, and I don't want to bring in any more debt into our relationship. So where are you with your career? If you don't know what you want to do with life, especially for you guys, I'm going to challenge you. It's going to be really hard to start a relationship or enter a relationship. I believe Guys, we're called to bring security into a relationship. That is one of the main things a young lady is looking for, is someone that can provide and bring security in Christ and financially, that can take care of them. And so if you don't know what you're going to do, or you're like, yeah, I want to kind of maybe sort of be a Twitch gamer or something like that, there's a chance you could get filthy rich off that. It's a very, 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 very small chance. So I'm going to challenge you, pursue a career, know what you want to do, so that you could bring that into a relationship. Now, some of you are like, David, this is great. I have 50 grand in debt already. I've counseled quite a few people that have a lot of debt, and I want to address this. It hurts me when I see the amount of debt a lot of people take on, especially for college, especially young ladies that don't necessarily want to work a full career. And I don't want to go off on too many tangents. Here's the truth. My wife has a degree. She's right now home with my kids, raising my kids. One day, my kids are going to be old enough where we either kick them out of the house or they're going to go to high school somewhere else. I don't know that she'll homeschool them in high school. We'll see. We'll figure it out when we get there. There's going to come a day when my wife enters into the workforce fully again. And with that said, my wife does bring in some income now, and most of the pastors' wives here do. So I don't want to write off this idea that all wives have to be stay-at-home moms and they can't work. We live in Southern California. But don't go 50 to 80 grand in debt if your real goal in life is to raise kids and to raise them up well. Marry a man who's going to help take care of you, and you might need to work. You might need to, and that's okay. You're not breaking any rules if you need to work. But man, it's hard when you have a lot of debt. And so if you have that, start paying it off as best you can. Do your best not to enter into that much debt. The one pass you get is if you're going to be a brain surgeon. I have a friend who is like $250,000 in debt, but he is literally a brain surgeon and is going to make like $700K a year. He gets a pass. If that's not you, you don't get a pass. Okay? Any questions about career or finance stuff? Any? Okay. Yeah. So we know about school loans. What else for home loans? Home loans? Yeah, well, so a home loan is going to be different if you approach it right. I would say seek a lot of wisdom and counsel in approaching a home loan. Right now in Southern California, I would say maybe wait. This market's gnarly. I think it's going to drop. But here's what's cool. If you get a home that you're willing to be in for a long time, that's a different type of debt than a school loan. And we can talk more about that later. My wife and I, we bought our first home. I would not encourage this. We bought it right before we got married. So I moved in, and then she moved in after we got married. It was at the low of the market, and we took all of the money that we were going to put towards a wedding, and we put it towards a down payment, and we bought our home. It continues to be an incredible blessing. In hindsight, I would have just waited till we got married for a few reasons, but if you guys you don't have to spend a ton of money on a wedding. Next week, we'll get into that. All right, so where are you in your career and with your finances? The sixth question, do you have counselors and mentors? If you don't, get a mentor and be willing to reach out to counselors. And the Bible says there's wisdom in many counselors. And I believe there needs to be one person that you just spill everything to, right? If you have multiple counselors, the Bible says that's good, so I'm going to say that's good. The one catch is you can't tell this one this thing and then this one this thing, and then they all think you're kind of good and you're really this dirtbag. So don't do that. But I have counselors that I go to for financial things, I go to Mark Hoffman for a lot of things. I go to Neil Hoffman for a lot of things. So that's good. Go have counselors, have mentors, and especially someone that you could go to and say, hey, this is me. Am I ready to date? This is me. Am I in a place where I have enough freedom here that I could pursue a relationship? You need to have those types of counselors and mentors in your life. All right, next question. How's your health and hygiene? I got to be real. Like, if we're talking about becoming marriage material, we got to know, like, am I being a good steward of my body? And this one's a sensitive one. I know, like, I'm in a place where I'm just, I recognize that it's not fair in a lot of ways. I could eat more than I probably should, and it doesn't show as much, although it's catching up. But you got to watch, like, how are you taking care of your body? How are you taking care of yourself? And if you can't take care of yourself, then you're not going to be able to take care of someone else really well. I'll leave it at that. Approach a counselor and mentor for more of that. Last question. Are your friends and hobbies making you a better person? I have counseled people not to get into relationships because the person they were interested in had a lot of, what I'm going to just say, toxic friends that just gossiped and were mean. And I was just like, hey, I think they're great, but I don't know that I would deal with that. That's hard. I didn't like doing that, but time has bared that pretty true. Like, I've seen some of the like challenges that have come with that. Same with hobbies. You know, there's hobbies we have that just don't help us. I was making fun of gamers a little bit earlier, so let's go back to it. If you spend, if you're working hard, you have a solid job, or you're pursuing your career, and your hobby, you feel like I can balance going home and playing 3 hours of video games a day, if you can convince me that, I will sit down, I'll hear you, okay? But I know people are spending way more time than that. And I don't see, and again, you could come prove me wrong, I don't see how 4, 5, 6 hours, some people a day, I don't see how that hobby is long-term going to help you. And I bring all of these questions up because remember, the point was become marriage material. And the type of marriage we're going to pursue is different than the world's. So the material has to be different. You guys know I like knives and things like that. There's some knives that are like this. Like this one is like a $30, $40 knife. And you could find a knife that is the same size and looks very similar that's $200. It's a different material. It's a different type of steel, right? And so it's going to last longer. It's going to be able to do more things, right? And it's out of my budget, right? I want to be the type of material, right? I want to pursue being the type of man that can be in a marriage that goes further, goes the distance, and with greater quality than most of the marriages our world has to offer. That's the type of marriage material we're trying to pursue. So there's this verse we say in my family a lot. I love it. It's Philippians 4:8. And it says, finally, brethren, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good repute, if there is any excellence and if anything worthy of praise, dwell on these things. Let's pursue excellence. Some of those things, I'm sure at least one of those questions you heard and you're like, that thing. Pursue excellence. That's the type of marriage material we're running after. So tonight we're talking about getting out of the friend zone. Let's say you become marriage material, then what's next? Well, the second thing I want you to do is this. Write down what you want in a spouse and take that to a mentor. Now, this is going to help us in like 16 different ways. All right, first off, most of you don't really know what you want. So write it down. Like really spend some time and think, guys, what type of woman do I want to be my wife, to raise my future family, and to be my partner the rest of my life? Girls, what type of man do I want to be my husband, to be the one that leads me and loves me like Jesus loved the church, and to lead my family and be my partner the rest of my life. Write down those qualities. More than write down the good, write down the deal breakers. I want this, 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 this. But if he does this, then that's a deal breaker. It's not gonna work. And then take that to a mentor. Take that to that counselor and say, hey, this is my list. What do you think? And I know some people, girls especially, that I've seen some girls' lists where it's like, this man doesn't exist on the side of eternity. I mean, Jesus lived a long time ago and he wasn't really pursuing girls this way. So like it's just, and a mentor will tell you that. And then I've seen a lot of people bring lists and it's like, you can ask for more. Like you could really seek something of greater standard than this. Now we want to write those things down for a couple reasons. One of which is so we know what we're looking for. One of which, so that if some really attractive young lady walks by you and you're like, oh, I don't care about a list, right? You don't want to do that. That's not good. And so we want a list so that we're not blinded by infatuation. In fact, there's a lot of people, there's that saying, you fall in love, which is ridiculous. Don't fall in love. Don't trip into a relationship. That's stupid. We don't glorify tripping and falling in any other category. But we're like, yes, I fell in love. He swept me off my feet. No. All right, so don't do that. Have a list. And if some guys, some like, whoa, and girls, some like, dang, walks up, then compare it to your list. All right? And then have some clarity there. Finally, so it helps you know what you're looking for. It prevents you from being blinded by love and stuff like that, by infatuation. John 15:7 says, if you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done. I want to tell you, God is faithful. God is really faithful. One of the reasons Courtney and I got together is because one of my really good friends and one of her really good friends were talking. And they said, hey, I think these two would be really good together. And they started exchanging what I was looking for and what she was looking for. It was pretty cool the way they had all worked out. And then they'd set us up, and that was it. We started dating. You got to know what you want. So I'm going to very, very quickly tell you some questions that it'd be good for you to ask when looking for someone. Can we throw up them? It says, is this person a believer who fears God and who is biblically eligible for marriage? Means they're not like kind of divorced, but the paperwork hasn't been signed. Give them some time, right? Do they really love the Lord? How do they handle their money? Is this person a hard worker? Do they live an upright life? Like, do they have integrity? Does this person wound people with their words, or are they an encourager? For the sake of time, I'm going to keep moving, but if you guys are taking notes and you want to write this down later, let me know, and we'll bring them back up. Are they peaceful or quarrelsome? What do my parents think about this person? Some of you are like, you don't want to ask my parents. So what does your pastor think about this person? Have I brought this before the Lord in prayer? Oh, man. Do you know how many people, Mr. Hunk walks in front of them, and they don't approach the Lord about it at all. They're like, well, clearly he brought them. No, you got to seek the Lord in these things. All right, last two questions I'm going to spend a minute on. Do they fit your style, my lifestyle? What I mean by that is, when I was looking for a wife, I wasn't looking for a CEO of a business. Now, what I mean by that is it's kind of ironic. My wife runs a couple businesses, but she's not like in the office, gone all day long type businesses. I didn't want that. I wanted someone who was going to be willing to stay home more, and she homeschools our kids, and she does an excellent job. That's what I wanted in a wife, right? Are you going to find someone who wants to travel or settle down, right? Someone who likes camping or likes resorts. My wife and I, we like camping. It would be hard to be that's our thing. We go out and we just like don't take showers for a week and stuff. And we're like, this is great and stuff. And there's some other people that like, they don't want to touch dirt, all right? And I didn't want that. So your style, ask yourself, do they want, here's a big one. I mentioned this last week. I was going into ministry. I needed someone that was cool with being a pastor's wife. And if that wasn't the case, then, and we had that conversation, I had to tell her, like, look, like, I know I don't have any debt, but I'm not going to have a lot of money either. Like, you got to be cool with that in these weird hours. And so they have to fit your style. And the next one is this: am I attracted to them? And you need to be attracted to them. But you also, this is one of those things where I'm not going to encourage anyone to get into a relationship where they're like, I'm not attracted to them. That's a problem. But if they check out all your other boxes and you're like, I mean, I'm not like, I don't think they're ugly, but I'm not like super attracted. I think it's okay to go on a couple dates and see if that attraction grows. You know, so there's that balance where if someone's not drop dead gorgeous, sometimes we ignore all these other really beautiful qualities about them. You know, or if someone is drop dead gorgeous, we ignore all these really ugly qualities about them. Attraction is one that you got to keep in balance, okay? So you're going to become marriage material. Then you're going to create this list of who you're looking for. And then the third thing I want you to do, so you could get out of the friend zone, and this is the last part of the training, then we're going to go to the tryout, is this: get to know them in group settings. Now, some of you are like, oh, this is so like 1853, like what in the world? Bill Wilson has this quote. He says, you don't really start dating someone until you've been dating them for 6 months. And what he means by that is the first 6 months of a relationship, you like girls, you still put on like all the makeup and spend some time. Guys, you like do everything you can not to fart in front of them. You like do, like there's this higher level of like, I gotta be on my best behavior and show them that I am, you know. And then after 6 months, it kind of slowly fades out the window. But if you're clearly in friends and you're just watching, there's no front of who I am. And so you get to watch someone and really see what they're like. And let me give you an example. Sometimes we think, all right, how am I going to get them and like 4 other people to hang out with me? That's just awkward and weird. It'll be obvious that I'm trying to get some inside information. Just here at Common Ground, this is what you can know about someone. You could see how they pursue the Lord. Like, do they press into worship? Do they bring their Bible? Or do they show up on time? You could see how they present themselves, how they dress, right? How they speak. You'd see what they do afterwards. Do they go play sports? And you're like, that's weird. They play cards or they hang out or what type, maybe they play on the band. You could get to know a lot of their personality. You could casually, but probably not tonight because I'm saying this, go up and just have a small conversation like, hey, what do you do for work? Or what are you studying in school? Or what, you know, things like that. Again, maybe not tonight. Everyone will be like, why'd you ask that? You know, all of this stuff you could figure out in a big group like this. And so you could get to know someone pretty dang well at home group or in groups. Do that because it's going to help you see what they're like. Now, you could even go on social media and follow them. And so if they're posting a bunch of things on social media, you absolutely can see, hey, this is what this person's going to be like. And a couple of you are like, you can't judge me. Yes, you can. Absolutely. Pay attention to what you're posting, you idiot. Sorry. I wasn't thinking of anyone's. Yeah. But I want to talk about online dating. Because according to current stats, most new relationships, people meet online nowadays, which means you can't meet in person in groups beforehand. And I want to tell you, online dating, it's not good and it's not bad, but there's things that are helpful and there's things that you really need to guard against and be aware of. And I'm going to tell you this. I think it is best for you to meet someone within your community. I think online dating should be second or third option. And what you're telling me if you're going online is you've looked at this community and you found it lacking. You found it wanting. And I think there's sometimes when I agree with people. I've had those conversations in the past couple of years because of where they were at and what they were looking for. And I've found those conversations where I'm like, I think your standards are a bit too high or something. I've had both those conversations. Here's what I want to challenge you. In person, especially within a group, you get to see more of an unfiltered perspective. Online, there's a few things you need to be aware of. First, if you're dating online, don't join out of fear. I'm serious. If you say, hey, I need to do this because if I don't, I'm going to be single forever. God's not really carrying out his end of the deal here, and I need to do this. Then you got to take a step back and work that out with the Lord. Don't do anything out of fear. I want you, if you're going to date online, go to your mentor and talk to them about it. And make sure that there's not some stuff that you need to work on. I want you, if you're going to date online, to approach dating online with the same standard, if not slightly higher than you would in person. It's kind of ridiculous how many people go online and then they lower their standards. And it's like, well, then just come back to this community. No offense, guys. But like, why do that? If you're going to go online, then something you need to really understand is you need to either be prepared to leave this community or help the person you're with leave theirs to join this community. Because if you're dating online, someone's going to have to, right? You guys know how that works? Someone's going to have to leave their church if they're both going to church so you guys could go to church together. And there are people I know who are like, all right, we're both going to leave our church and we're going to join one new one and start fresh. That's stupid. Don't do that. At least have some strength. Use some of the foundation and the support you have within community. I'm going to go into one more step later on for the tryout for online. So I'll come back to that. But I also want to encourage you, use the right app. If you have to go online, if that's where you choose to do because you've sought things out within community, don't go on Tinder, right? And don't go on some hookup site and then expect to find some great man of Christ. All right? And then if you go to Christian apps, right? I've heard good things about Coffee Meets Bagel. I've heard good things about Upward. Did I say that right? Anyone? I think that's right. And Bumble. I have a friend who's had success there. Some people are like, no, okay. Here's the deal. On all of those, you got to have Christian filters, and then you have to be weary. Online dating apps attract creepers. And so I know personally people who have found their spouse on there, and it has been great. But every single girl that I've ever talked to has dealt with creepers and bad people also. And so you need to just be cautious and weary. And a lot of that can be alleviated if you choose just to avoid that route. But sometimes it's been a real blessing. So here's how to get out of the friend zone. You become marriage material. You figure out who you're looking for, what you're looking for. You start to get to know someone within group settings. And now here's the tryout. Here's how you do it. You go on appropriate first dates. And I'm going to create the date for you. You're going to go up to someone. Now, you're a friend. It's clear. They're a friend. It's clear. But you're over here and you're like, I think I want to be more than a friend. I want to maybe pursue her. I'm going to say her because I'm a dude and it's easier. And so you go up to them and you say this, I would like to take you on a date. All right, you just say it right there. You don't say like, hey, do you think maybe we could grab coffee or go talk or do something together sometime? Like no ambiguous, I'm not sure what we are or what we're doing. Like I've been on dates where I'm not sure they were dates. And I'm like, what in the world? You just say, hey, I would like to pursue seeing if we could become more than friends. I want to take you on a date. You say, hey, I really like this about you. Could we go on a date? Cool? That's how you start it. No ambiguous, nothing. Then you go and you set a time, and what I'm going to encourage you to do is set a time likely during the day. I think for these first ones, lunch dates are great, right? And you're going to drive separate. You're going to drive, everybody say drive separate. Girls, drive separate. Now, some of you are like, but he has to be a gentleman and pick me up and stuff. He could do that after this section. Because what I'm telling you about this, you're going to go, I'm jumping ahead, but I want you to go from friend zone. This is the tryout. And the tryout, or as Douglas Wilson says, the vulnerability zone, you get 2 to 4 dates. 2 to 4 dates. And that's where you're trying to see, is this worth pursuing? If that's the case, then at the end of that 2 dates, if it's going really well, or 4 dates if it took a little bit, then you're going to put a title on it. You're going to call it what it is. You're dating your boyfriend and girlfriend, and you're going to put boundaries up. Now, until you put boundaries up and your boyfriend, girlfriend, until that place, there's no boundaries. And so these 2 to 4 dates, you're going to set up some boundaries of your own to protect everybody in it, because you're just trying to figure things out. So you drive separately to the date. It's probably going to be a lunch date. I'll get to your question in a second, because that would be nice. But here's the date. Don't go see a movie. You can't talk during a movie. That's dumb, right? Or I once went to a concert. It was kind of like this open. I couldn't talk to the girl at all. Like, what? That was dumb. So go somewhere where you can talk, get to know them. You drive separate. It's likely during the day. It's just like a 2-hour date, something not crazy big. And then you see how it goes. And if it goes well, then go on another date and figure out. If it doesn't go well, you say, hey, I still think you're awesome. I just don't think this is meant to be. Like, I don't think you and I should pursue this further. I really just want to continue having a good friendship. And then you go back to that. Now, here's the deal. If we do this well, then you're going to not be in a place without boundaries that puts you in a dangerous spot, right? And you're also, if things are not going to work out, remember when we were starting, how I said the problem with current relationships, because there's no boundaries, then you just barely start talking and everybody starts planning the wedding, right? Well, you haven't done any of that. You haven't. Now, girls, I have to be real with you. The way God designed you, and it's great mostly, is you're more emotional. And so this, let's be real, this is still a little bit hard. Because if you go on 2 dates and it doesn't work out, it's going to hurt. And no, breakups are there. This is like the most mild of you were never boyfriend, girlfriend, you were just trying to figure out. And it's likely still going to hurt a little bit. And I want to warn you, if that happens, it doesn't mean, guys or girls, that you're broken. You know, it might mean the guy figured out maybe he's looking for a different style, or the girl was looking for someone a little bit different. You could be great. She could be great. And you're just not great for each other. And that is absolutely fine. But we have to try to figure that out without being in relationships that either so quickly become like have huge expectations, or without relationships that are so afraid of calling it a date that they're ambiguous and nobody knows if they're dating or not, and then you put yourself in, positions where you're going to get hurt, and it just takes a lot longer. I don't want any of those things. So what I want is, you've been clear, you've done a lot of prep work, they've done a lot of prep work. Girls especially, tell yourself like, hey, it might not work out. And that doesn't mean I'm broken. It might mean I have some stuff I need to work on. It might not. Guys, it might mean you have some stuff to work on. It might mean not. But you get to a place, 2 to 4 dates, drive separate, public place, because there's no boundaries yet, and you just figure it out. And then afterwards, you have that conversation, the DTR, right? And you could do it after 1 date. If you're like, no, guys, you're like, I just don't want to lose her. Just ask her out. But you don't have to. 2 to 4 dates, and Then you work it out. Elizabeth.
What about people who don't have their own vehicle?
You gotta, I would say either Uber, have a friend take you, use public transportation. You got to do something. This is important because the date could be terrible, right? And then you're stuck. But it's also important because the date could be fire. It could be good. And then you're in a place where you're alone. And the amount of people I know who have gotten into really big trouble in cars alone is ridiculous. And so you're protecting both sides of things. You want to be on guard. It's just 2 to 4 dates, and then you guys could, once you create some boundaries, which next week I'm going to tell you what boundaries I want to encourage you to create and all of that. But this is just to be on guard. And if you're online dating, you have to do this. And especially girls, like, I'm not going to lie. If I hear that you are meeting some guy online, some online app for the very first time, and you're driving together, I'm going to get a little bit frustrated out of love because you're just putting yourself in a position that I'm uncomfortable with, and I need you to not do that because I know people have gotten really hurt that way. Again, I know marriages that have come out of online dating. I've also heard some horror stories. It's just 2 to 4 dates. Cool? So, how do you get out of the friend zone? You become marriage material. You figure out what you're looking for. You do your best to find that within a group setting so you can, over time, from afar, really see someone, what they're like. My wife, she spied on me. So I was working at Youth Venture, and her brother started coming to my small group, and so she started picking him up. And then she would take a while, like he would hang out, because we're at Youth Venture. So, and she would like let him casually keep playing pool or doing whatever while she's spying. And this whole time I had no clue, like no clue. In fact, there's another small group leader who had a crush on her, but he didn't tell me either. And so I didn't break any bro codes or anything like that, but I had no clue. And then when I called her up and I said, because I'm an idiot, and I was like, I wanted to get to know her, so I said, hey, do you have a home group? You should come to my home group. That was my, I'm trying to get to know you. And she's like, no. And so then we went on a date 2 days later. The rest is history. You have the friend zone, which is clear. Now you have this training camp tryout, which is honestly the vulnerability zone, the challenging time. Next week, we're going to talk about it's official. Your boyfriend, girlfriend, how do you get either to marriage successfully, or how do you get to a place where it's very clear that, hey, that's not where we want to go. And I'm going to talk to you about how do you break up also. What does that look like? How does that conversation go? Cool? So I want to pray, and then I want to end with just one song of worship. Will you guys stand up for me? Let me tell you this, and we're killing it. We're doing good on time. So I feel like sometimes after a real practical message like this, worship is kind of like, all right, I have to get my mind from dating back to God. I want to encourage you. We're approaching all of this. The goal is to approach it with a Christian mindset and with a goal, like, I want to do this work so I can have a marriage that really honors the Lord. When he does that, I'm not blowing smoke. My wife is better than I deserve. She's incredible in so many ways. And I want you guys to be in rich, powerful, God-honoring relationships. And it starts when we just honor God with our lives, single or dating. So let's do that. Let me pray for us. Lord, we love you. We thank you. You are good. Help us to approach this well. And Lord, may you guard our hearts from unnecessary hurts. May you give us wisdom to walk in conviction. And God, we truly do pray you would provide. I really do pray that you would pair up young men that belong to Foothills with godly young ladies and young ladies that attend Foothills with godly young men. May you pair us up with people that are going to challenge us to walk a righteous life, like to live it out. May you pair us up with people that are going to help us to do more for your kingdom than we could alone. May you pair us up with someone who is going to help us raise the next generation in a way that honors you. And Father, in this mess of a world that we live in, may you pair us up with someone that's going to help make it better by your standard.